Invasive mussel species are continuing to hitchhike westward, and this past year were first found in the waters of Montana. Now that the threat is at our door, will our province introduce laws that make it mandatory for all watercraft entering British Columbia to stop at inspection stations before launching in our waters?
So last time I spoke to the Chamber, I think it was last year, in fact, I got a similar question, and I think I said, just hold tight, we've got an announcement coming for invasive species, and we added millions of dollars to the budget to support more protection against invasive species. So can I give you the same answer again, Tom? Which is hold tight. We have some more planning underway in government to make sure that we meet this threat, because it's getting closer and closer, and you know, as I said, and I certainly know, once it comes, there's no stopping it. And you know, not just the cost to our environment, the cost to all of the businesses here that depend on a healthy lake and healthy water system, the cost to BC Hydro, and I mean, it's almost, if you calculate the many hundreds of millions it would cost, it's the investment that we are poised to make and trying to stop it is going to be well worth it.
Thank you. Some people have said there is not enough in this budget for seniors. Is that true?
Well, I would say a 50% MSP cut is pretty good for seniors on a fixed income. I would, 90% of seniors will now either pay no MSP or they'll pay half MSP. And, you know, I think that's a pretty good benefit for folks on a fixed income. Just for context on MSP, 2 million, 4.8 million British Columbians. 2 million don't pay any MSP at all today. 2 million now will have their MSP premiums cut in half, which is about a benefit of $900 for many people per family. And the other, if your MSP premiums, if you're still paying them at full rate, it means you're in the lucky 800,000 British Columbians who have a household income of over $120,000. But the other thing that I know seniors really care about is access to health care. $4.1 billion investment in our healthcare system is an investment people are really going to feel. They'll feel it in terms of the investment in new hospitals, but also in access to MRIs, reduced waiting lists, more access to health professionals. All of that investment will be, I think, really felt by seniors. And I think those are probably the two most important features in any budget for senior citizens.
Thank you. Credit unions are tremendously important to British Columbia businesses. No more so than in our province's many towns are too small to support big bank and branches.
Big bad branches?
Big bad bank branches, yeah. Exactly. Should have reworded that one the right way. This government has shown good sense in holding the credit union tax rate for 2016 levels through 2017. Will it now show leadership by committing to hold the tax rate indefinitely and signal that the federal government decision to treat community credit unions like big banks was bad for businesses and bad for British Columbia?
We are still hoping to persuade the federal government that this was a bad idea in the first place. I mean, you know what, for those who may not be familiar, what happened was the federal government changed the tax rates to treat credit unions the same way that they treat big banks. And the province stepped in with some relief over a period of time, and we've continued to extend that. It was a bad idea for the federal government to do it in the first place. And the problem, you know, the thing about for the province is every time the federal government decides they don't feel like funding healthcare, or they don't feel like supporting credit unions, or they don't feel like, the province always finds its way to step in, and we put all of that cost on provincial taxpayers. I would sure rather see the federal government meet their responsibility on this rather than expecting to be bailed out by taxpayers in the province. That's my first choice. But my second choice is absolutely, I mean, we're going to continue to try and lobby them, but we do want to be here to support credit unions, though, at the same time. And, you know, I know credit unions don't want to get caught up in, you know, a fight between the feds and the province. What you want is you want the right tax rate to support a very, very important service, especially in smaller communities across the province.
Thank you. Your budget states that the reduction of MSP by 50% is the first step in eliminating it. Why not simply eliminate it now?
Well, it's $2.4 billion, which is more than the surplus, and it was, you know, it was a challenging decision because our surplus is $2 billion, and we had a choice to make to say we could take all of that $2 billion and almost entirely get rid of MSP in one shot, but it would have meant we wouldn't have had any money left in order to put it, the money into healthcare and the money into education that we really felt we needed. So what we decided to do was balance this budget in more ways than one. It is balanced at the bottom line, but it's also balanced in terms of spending on necessary services at the same time that we are providing $1 billion in tax relief. So we wanted to make it a two-step process. I think it might have been a legitimate complaint. People might have said, well, we aren't investing enough in growing services. I mean, 65,000 people have come to British Columbia in the last year. Which is fantastic. But as we've seen in Kelowna, some people will come from Alberta, they'll land, and they'll need to find their way onto social assistance for a short period of time before they get on their feet. We need to support them in that. 65,000 people who are bringing their children, growing enrollment for the first time in schools, we need to support that. 65,000 people who need healthcare services, we need to be able to provide that. So we wanted to find that balance. Half of the surplus into tax relief, half of it investing in necessary services for people, but we will eliminate MSP, and I bet your next question is when. So we've got to keep our economy growing. That's the trick with this. We've grown our economy, it's been a really strong period of growth for us, which is why we've been allowed to do this. We want to keep this growth up. So, depending on the outcome of the election, if people choose a growth government, I promise you, we're going to work hard to make sure that we grow it as fast as we can, and we eliminate MSP as fast as we can.
We thank you for the $3 million funding for Foundry Kelowna that will provide one-stop shop integrated youth service center for kids and teens in need of mental health care and social services. Your government recently signed a new federal-provincial health agreement, which included additional funding for mental health. How and where do you plan to invest these additional funds in order to address the escalating challenges of dealing with mental health, addiction, and homelessness?
If everybody is familiar with what the Foundry does, I don't know if you all are, but you should be. It is an unbelievable model that folks have created. It is because the problem for young people often, or for a parent of a young person who's struggling with a mental illness, is your child has a crisis and you don't know where to go. And maybe you end up most people end up at the emergency ward, which is not the best. I mean, it's better than not going anywhere, but it is not the best place for a young person who's experiencing a mental health issue to be. And once they get out of emergency, what do you do next? And it's a recurring problem for parents and for young people who are experiencing this. So what the Foundry has done is create a one-stop shop. So anybody who's young person who's dealing with a mental illness, whether it's anxiety or a psychotic break, anything along that spectrum from less serious to the most serious, will walk in and will be able to find the services they need from there. So they don't have to go searching for services when they are at their most vulnerable and least capable. It's really an important model, and it's one that we're going to import to cities and communities all across the province. That's what the $100 million for mental health is for. Part of this is going to be making sure that we're doing a better job of identifying children with mental health issues when they're still in school, so that that mental health issue doesn't grow and become more acute and just, almost impossible before young people just find themselves in a situation where they're confronting, maybe suicide, or they're starting to become addicted to drugs as a way to manage it. We need to find them sooner. We need to identify them sooner. We need to get them to treatment as soon as we possibly can. This is such an important area for us to make an investment, because those kids have just as much potential to contribute to our society and our community as anybody else does. And we need to stop treating mental illness like it's something that people should be ashamed of. It's a medical problem people have, and we need to take away the stigma, open up our doors, and make sure that young people have access to those services when they need it, as soon as we see the problem emerge. I know for our community, as well as many others
areas throughout the province and throughout the country. The homelessness issue is a big item on the social platform and also for business. So whatever can be done to address it, I think is.
Yeah, well, I mean, and they're related, of course, right? Addiction, homelessness, mental health, and what we know is that if someone is homeless and addicted, they probably have an underlying mental health issue. And what we need to stop trying to deal with homelessness and addiction after people are homeless and addicted, if we can. Let's try and support people through their mental illness and finding a way to mental health. And then their likelihood of getting, finding themselves in the street addicted to drugs and risking their lives with a substance abuse problem every day is so much diminished. We do need to build housing, and we need to build supportive housing, which is what the $1 billion is for in the budget, because there are still people who are homeless and still people who are mentally ill and addicted, and you can't get better if you don't have a roof over your head. But I would argue that the best way to support fewer people becoming homeless is to support them in dealing with their mental illness before it becomes acute.